Oh, that brings up another topic. Since I spoke to Seth Shostak earlier tonight, and I want to play something for you. You may have been warned that this was coming, but I want to play something. What I'm about to play for you came from YouTube, and I think it has, it's the reason I'm going to ask you a question. So here it is. It's your voice.
Now, I'm going to say something here because this is enough years after it happened. A few years ago, there was a show called Coast to Coast with Art Bell. And it was on the cover of Time magazine, and I was one of his favorite guests. And when I'd be on that show, it really lit things up at certain agencies. And one time I was on his show, and a few years back, towards the end of his career there, and this issue came up, and I said, well, I have a source high up in SETI that confirms to me that they, in fact, have received interplanetary signals, but in a kind of phased, not normal array. It was kind of a pulsed array, and that it was kept secret and covered up. And the SETI people were furious. Subsequently, Seth Shostak got on the show and just said, well, Dr. Greer knew what he's talking about, and he probably talked to some volunteer computer operator, because we have all this network of volunteers. What Art Bell didn't know, and which Seth Shostak didn't know, and which I'm going to say now because it's enough water gone under the bridge, is that the guy who told me that was the founder of the SETI project and the Drake equation, Dr. Drake. He told me that they had that contact. Moreover, a man who had been one of Carl Sagan's best friends, the best man at his wedding, confirmed it. And he had been present when the WOW signal came in at Harvard.
Okay. Oh, all right. So I played that for Seth when he was on. That was on, I don't know, month and a half ago, and he said, no way.
Yeah,
no way.
And there's no way that he can be, he would be allowed to even confirm it. Dr. Drake, when he and I had the phone call, said, if it was even known I was having this conversation with you, it would be the end of my career and maybe my life. Subsequently, the man I was referring to, who, along with Carl Sagan and others, had co-founded the Extrasolar Planetary Society, which is the early attempt to find other Earth-like star systems out there. And another man who was one of the founders of the Allegheny Observatory up in near Pittsburgh, George Fennell. And the other man I'm referring to, who is good friends with Carl Sagan, Jim Mullaney, who used to be one of the editors of Sky and Telescope magazine, Astronomy magazine. Both of them had front row seats. These were not volunteers. These were the top people, and they confirmed independently. They didn't know each other. They confirmed that, in fact, signals had come in, and they had been kept quiet. Now, Seth and I had a debate on Voice of America the day of or after the National Press Club event in Washington for the launch of the Global Disclosure Movement. And I had a number of top-secret military people with me on that broadcast on Voice of America. He kept making these assertions that there was no evidence, even though we were presenting massive amounts of evidence. I mean, hundreds of thousands of pages of documents, testimony, transcripts, eyewitnesses, people who had top-secret clearances. And it was clear that, he did not win, by the way, the debate on Voice of America. But what was interesting is that it was clear that no matter what you present in the way of evidence, he would say it's not true when we're still looking for a signal.
Right.
So my only question is, you're either incredibly poorly informed or you're carrying water to maintain the secrecy on this for somebody.
Would you care to speculate on which of those you rather imagine to be?
It's the latter.
Well,
he's certainly an intelligent person.
Yes,
and,
he is.
These names I just gave you, George Fennell, Jim Mullaney, Dr. Drake himself, and the Drake equation, these are all people that I've spoken with. And in the case of Mulaney and Fennell, I've spent enormous amounts of time with them, and these were key figures in the early days of this search. And they, in fact, what was interesting about Jim Mulaney is that he was at the congressional briefings that we did in 1997. You may remember this. Before we did the Public National Press Club event.
I do recall.
And he presented at that. And it was closed door. There were members of Congress. There were chairmen of committees there. There were people from the Vice President and President's office. At that time, it was Bill Clinton and Al Gore. There were all these people. It was at the Georgetown Westin Hotel. We had a dozen or so top-secret folks there presenting. One of them was Jim Mulaney. He got so much heat after that, he wrote me a note and said, he says, you are absolutely on the right track. All of this is true. But if I continue to do anything to help disclose this information, even in these closed briefings, I have been informed that it will be the end of my career. So this is serious stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's serious stuff.
I have worked with people of the highest integrity who have been threatened, who have had their careers put at jeopardy, and who have had to back off from stepping forward publicly because of the henchmen by this fascistic cabal of secrecy.
Dr. Greer? Dr. Greer, why?
And so I'm going to call them out. This is the first time I've shared those names on a radio show, and I'm doing it tonight.
All right. My next question is...
What I just told you, a much bigger story than these objects 1,500 light years.
Well, they're both big stories, but you're right. It's a big story.
I got news for you. This is a bigger story because this is what's going on planet Earth with the chicanery of these goose-stepping fools.
Goose-stepping fools?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, the kind of lies. I mean, I think people need to say it's enough of this.
Wow.
I mean, whose water are they carrying?
Okay, well, my other question, we'll come back to it, Doctor. My question is why? Why are people's lives on the line? Why are people lying? Why is it that big a deal that people would get killed or lose careers over it? Why?
Oh, it's a huge deal. Look, I mean, first of all, it's a complete change in the paradigm of how we view ourselves in the cosmos.
Okay.
Everything from organized religion to philosophy to history to the origins of the human race.
Right.
Secondly, the technological implications. If you acknowledge, not that it's something floating out there 1,500 light years away, but you acknowledge that there are objects and civilizations that have gone beyond the speed of light and have gotten here, and that we have studied these technologies, and moreover, we have them in classified projects, and then you put that up against the trillions of dollars being spent to try to put Band-Aids on global warming or fossil fuels or pollution. This would be, the public would demand that this issue be dealt with properly because we're running our planet into the ground.
I agree.
Environmentally, socially, politically.
But Doctor, that's part of the why. You just said it. We're running our planet into the ground. If we're running our planet into the ground, Doctor, then for God's sakes, these technologies should be brought forward to save ourselves.
Well, I know. I've spent 25 years working trying to make that happen. And so, but you have the biggest special interest in the world not wanting that to happen. It's not just oil and gas and coal. It's the petrodollar system. It's the macro. This is something that, the Minister of Defense, Paul Hillier, and I talked a lot about before we did our first press conference together up there in Canada when he was sort of coming out on this subject. And the Honorable Paul Hillier said, look, it's a macroeconomic problem. You're absolutely right. Because if you have a source of energy that'll run your home and your car, and every village and house is independent from the need to be in this centralized system, this is the biggest revolution economically in the history of the human race, bar none. And that's really, we're really talking about macroeconomic power, geopolitical power.
Yeah, but it is the one thing that would save us that they are keeping secret from us. While the planet goes to hell in a handbasket, we've got oceans ready to come up by not inches but feet. We've got cities that are going to be disappearing under the water, Doctor.
Right.
So if ever there was a time,
yeah,
it's now.